Well, hello there. Dr. Samuel Jones, of course, always on here sharing some information, hoping to encourage you, inspire you, and more importantly, getting you to shift and do all the things that you want to accomplish in this thing called life. So today, the video is titled, How to Win with What You Have Left. Now, as I was thinking about this topic, I mean, there's so many different examples in the Bible that I could have pulled from. But fortunately, I was reading in the book of Ruth, and as I began to read it and just thinking about the story and who's involved and what happened, I just really began to think about, wow, I think this is a great story to talk about how to win with what you have left. Now, I know if you think about it, the book of Ruth is about Ruth's story, and of course she ended up with Boaz, and the rest is history, and that's a fantastic story. But there's four things that I want to share with you, and a character in this story that I really looked at differently as I read it. And it made me think about the people that I'm working with, the coaches, the coachees that I have, a lot of the training that I'm doing. And I said, you know what? This is a really interesting story, and I think a lot of people can learn some things from this. And so today I'm going to share with you four things that we can do to win with whatever we have left. Now, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to read through several verses of the text, and then we're just going to pull out what we talked about, but also we're going to identify these four things that I'm going to share with you today. So I'm reading from the King James Version, and I'm reading from the book of Ruth, and I'm going to read the first 7 verses. And it said, "Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife was Naomi, and the name of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left, and her 2 sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab, and the name of one was Orpah, and the other name Ruth. And they dwelled there about 10 years. And Mahlon and Chilion died also, both of them, and the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law that she might return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab how the Lord had visited his people and giving them bread. Wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return unto the land of Judah." Now, of course, in this story, it talks about Naomi, and she has 2 daughter-in-laws, and she had her husband, and she had 2 sons. And in the span of 10 years, she lost her husband, and she lost her 2 sons. Now, can you just imagine what it probably was like for her to be in a strange land, and she's lost her husband, and she's lost her 2 sons, and now she's left with 2 daughter-in-laws? The first thing that, if we're going to win with whatever we have left, the first thing we have to do is we have to figure out how are we going to redefine ourselves. If you think about it, sometimes when tragedy happens in our life, we lose a job, we lose a family member, we lose whatever we lose. It's hard for us to sometimes start over. But I love what Naomi is doing. She is saying, I'm going to start over. I'm going back home. I'm going back to my homeland. And you know what? Sometimes we will refuse to start over. We don't want to go back home. We don't want to go back to step 1. We just don't want to go back. Why? Because we have so much experience, and we sometimes feel like starting over says that we've lost. And that's one of the biggest things that I got out of this story, is that Naomi, she had the courage to say, you know what? I'm going back home. I'm going to start over. And as I was thinking about this, I'm going to give you 5 things right now that keeps us from starting over, right? We need to go back to the first stage, and we need to start over. So the first thing that stops us from starting over and going back home is the fear of the unknown. We just don't know, right? Fear just drives us and we think about the worst case scenario. But I love what Naomi said. She said, I heard that God was blessing people with bread back home. And she said, you know what? I'm going back home. So the fear of the unknown did not stop her. As a matter of fact, it drove her. Number two, the things that stops us from starting over or going back home is our comfort zone, right? We just get so comfortable and we just feel like we're in a good place. But a lot of times it stops us from starting over, right? When you know something is not working and you're so comfortable, especially when you have lost people and you've lost resources and you've lost time and you've lost so many different things, we can easily get stuck in that comfort zone. But she didn't. She went back home and started over. Sometimes, number three, sometimes we fail to go back home or we fail to start over because the fear of failure. We feel like if I do that, I'm a failure. But you know what failure is for me? And this is what I tell all my coachees. Failure is nothing but feedback. So if you feel like you've lost something or you failed at something, take time to take stock as to what you have left. Because that's what she did. She recognized she had two daughter-in-laws and she said, you know what? I'm starting over. I'm going home. You can come with me, but I'm going home. So that fear of failure will stop us. Number four, this is probably one of the most important things that stop people from starting over, even going home. The opinion of other people. Sometimes we can get so worried and concerned and worked up about what other people think about us, how people are going to view us. Everybody's talking about us, all of these things. But you know what I think Naomi said? Forget what other people think about me. I'm thinking about what I've lost and who I've lost. And so I recognize I'm in this strange land. I need to go back home. I'm going to start over. And I could care less about what other people think about me. And this is really, really important, especially in this time with social media and Instagram and YouTube and all of these things that this platform that we have. Sometimes we can really get easily caught up and worried about what other people think about you. So this is one of the great lessons I got from this story. And then, of course, the last thing is the emotional attachment to the current location rather than our destination. You know, we can get so emotional attached to where we are and what we're doing and what we have. But the thing about it is when we begin to lose those things, we have tied our identity to them. And so if we lose things or if we lose people, guess what? And we've tied our identity to them. Now we don't know who we are. Naomi said, you know what? I've lost my husband. I've lost my two sons. I have my two daughter-in-laws, but you know what? I'm going back home. And sometimes we need to know how to do that. And so one of the things that I have learned working with coachees and doing the work that I do, I help my coachees through 4 different experiences in order for them to redefine themselves. And I'm going to talk briefly about these because I think it's really, really important that you recognize which experience that you're in and which experience you're focusing on and which experience sometimes can have you stuck in terms of redefining yourself. So here are 4 experiences to help you to redefine who you are and what you're trying to accomplish in this thing called life. The first one is something called known experiences. That's where we recognize, we know what to expect. We know what it looks like. We know what it feels like. We know what it sounds like. But sometimes those known experiences can make us very, very biased. So we have to be aware of that. Number 2, these things called unknown experiences. These unknown experiences drive fear, right? Because we think about the worst case scenario. Oh my goodness, what if I do this? What if I go back and it doesn't work out? What if I go back and man, I'm worse off in a situation than what I'm in right now? And those unknown experiences, it plays on our anxiety and fear. And so we have to recognize when we're focusing on them. Number 3, those unwanted experiences, right? We think about what's going to happen and we don't want it. And now it's that fight or flight syndrome. We recognize I don't want that, don't want to have anything to do with that. So I'm going to run and go the opposite way rather than starting over. We have to recognize when that experience is driving us. The last experience where I really try to help my coachees get to a place to really take that next level is those understood experiences. And those are the experiences where you recognize what you've learned, what you've overcome, What strategies did you apply? What resources did you have, matter of fact, that you didn't recognize that you had before? Those understood experiences will truly, truly help you to redefine yourself. And I truly believe that Naomi said, you know what? I understand where I'm at currently. I understand what I've lost. And I recognize it's time for me to start over. So if you're going to redefine yourself, you just got to take the courage and say, you know what? It's okay to start over. So the first tool, the first strategy in winning with what you have left is to redefine yourself. What about the second strategy? The second strategy is to renovate your relationships. Now, what does that sound like? What does that mean? Well, when you renovate a house, you're going to go in and first of all, you have a strategy in terms of what you want it to look like and based on what it looks like currently. Well, you're going to come in, you're going to tear down some walls, you're going to knock some walls out, you're going to move some cabinets, you're going to redesign things. So when I say renovate your relationships, some people you need to hold on to and some people you need to let go. I love what Naomi did with her situation. So in the scripture it says, and Naomi said unto her two daughters, so when she decided to go back home, this is what she said to her two daughter-in-laws. She said unto them, go return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. May the Lord grant you that you may find rest, each of you in the household of your husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. And they said unto her, surely we will return with thee unto thy people. And Naomi said, turn again, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my wombs that they may be your husbands? Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say I have hope, if I should have a husband also tonight, and should also bear sons, would you tarry for them till they were grown? Would ye stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sakes that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. And they lifted up their voice and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her. When I think about that, Naomi is saying, you know what? I'm going back home, but I'm going to give both of you the option to go back to your homeland. Matter of fact, I'm so old, I'm not going to have another kid. And matter of fact, I don't even want a husband. And so do you think that you're going to hang with me long enough for me to birth another child and you're going to grow up to wait for him to get old to marry him? She's saying, you know what? Both of you, go back home. Go back home to your family and go ahead and try to live a new life. You know what? Sometimes we need to renovate our relationships with the people in our life. There are some people in our life that we really need to ask them to go ahead and go back home. Go to a totally different place. You know what? I'm freeing you today. But I love the example that Ruth said. The scripture says that Ruth cleaved unto her. So Ruth stayed with her. And you'll hear later on that Naomi still tried to get Ruth to go back and Ruth said, you know what? I'm with you. I'm with you to the end. Those are the kind of people that we need in our life. That no matter how bad the situation is, no matter what we've lost, those are the people that say, you know what, I'm with you to the end. But Orpah, now guess what? Orpah is not a bad person. So I don't want you to walk away from this story and say, Orpah left her? Well, guess what? Naomi gave her the freedom to leave. And guess what? There's some people in your life that you just need to give them the freedom to leave. And they may not be bad people. But guess what? If you know you're going home, you don't need a lot of baggage. So free some people in your life. How do you do that? You're going to do that by renovating your relationships. You're going to look at some relationships that you have in your life. Look at the relationships you have on your job. Look at the relationships you have in your family. Look at the relationships that you have as your friends. And evaluate which ones really need to be with me. Which ones need to stay with me. You know why? Because you're trying to win with what you have left. And you can't win with everyone that you have in your life. That's what Naomi realized. Naomi said, you know what? Both of you are young. You still have your life ahead of you. I am going to free you both. Ruth decided to stay with her. Orpah decides to go back home. Now, Orpah is not a bad person, okay? I want you to know that. And there are some people in your life. They're not bad people, but they just can't go with you to this next place that God is trying to take you. You have to recognize that if you're going to win with what you have left. So here are several things here that keep people from renovating their relationships. And as you listen to these things, I want you to evaluate yourself. Do you have some people in your life that you need to renovate? Now, notice I say renovate. I didn't say kick them out, right? Naomi didn't kick Orpah out. She freed her. So maybe you need to free some people in your life. Here's some things that keep people from renovating their relationships. Number one, other people's perspectives. Other people's perspectives. You know how it is when you have in your mind what something you're trying to accomplish, and someone walks up and says, well, you can't do that. You're not going to be able to do that. You know, you tried that last year and it didn't work. And they have not even considered the fact that you now have experience from attempting that. They don't even consider the resources that you have now. They don't even consider the network that you have now. But they just have this mindset that because you can't do it, because you couldn't do it the first time, now you can never do it. So listen, other people's perspectives will stop you from renovating your relationships. Number two, communication barriers. Sometimes people just don't know how to communicate. And I love what Naomi was talking directly to her daughter-in-laws. She was talking directly to them, and she was speaking to them clearly. She was making sure that they understood. Listen, this is where I'm at. I'm freeing you both. Now you both have the freedom to do exactly what you want to do. Sometimes these communication barriers stop us from communicating exactly what we need to communicate. But I'm telling you, if you're going to win with what you have left and renovate your relationships, remove the communication barriers. Number three, the fear of being vulnerable, right? Expressing your true feelings to the people that you care about, or expressing the true feelings to the people that you need to renovate your relationships with. Don't be afraid to tell people, you know what? Man, we have been friends for a long time, and man, I really, really appreciate you. However, as we go forward, you know, if I limit my contact with you, don't take it personal. I'm focusing on some more things that are really, really important to me. And this is why I'm doing this, because it's important, because God told me to do it. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable with people. Express with people how you feel, how you truly feel, and what you think. Now, based on how they respond to you, they will tell you whether or not they need to remain in your life. I love when Naomi gave Ruth and Orpah, told them to go back home. They were emotional about it. The scripture says they hugged and they kissed and they talked and they connected. Every last one of them were willing to be vulnerable with each other. But at the end of the day, Orpah decided to go back home. Now, again, Orpah is not a bad person. So the people in your life, they may not be bad people, but it's a different space for you because you're trying to win with what you have left. Number four, a reason why sometimes people don't renovate their relationships: lack of trust. I promise you right now, if you can't be vulnerable with other people, they will not trust you. Plain and simple. And if you want people to trust you, you need to learn how to be vulnerable with them. That's how you renovate your relationships. Last but not least, and this is probably the most important one, unforgiveness. Unforgiveness keeps us from renovating our relationships. We go around and hold these grudges against people that are in our lives, and we want them to be out of our lives, but we want to renovate the relationships. And so it's like a merry-go-round. We get upset with people, and we want them out of our life, and then we do things to keep them in our life so they can keep doing the things that they do that irritate us, so it can remind us that we have people in our life that irritate us, and we have the freedom to decide how it's going to be. But we get on this merry-go-round, right? We get on this merry-go-round, round and around and around, when we have the power to decide, you know what, let me jump off this merry-go-round. That's how you renovate your relationships. So the first one was redefine yourself. The second one was renovate your relationships. And now number three is we have to learn how to receive support. learn how to receive support. When people in your life are trying to help you, learn how to receive it. And you know what? Naomi learned how to receive it. What happened? And she said, behold, and she's talking to Ruth. She says, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. This is what Ruth said. And I love this because now Ruth is expressing to her, I'm with you to the very end. So you might as well stop trying to run me off. I'm not going anywhere. Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee or return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go. And where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. Where thou diest, I will die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught be death part thee and me. When she saw, this is what, when Naomi saw that she was steadfastly minded to go with her, then she left speaking unto her. You know what? Naomi got to a point and said, you know what? I'm not running this girl off. I might as well give up. She is with me to the very end. And you know what? That's what we need to learn how to do in our life. We have people around us who have been with us through thick and thin. They have been through hell and high water with us. They have been through so many storms with us in our life, and they're there to help us and to support us. And we're trying to run them off. Naomi said, you know what? I'm done. Let me stop trying to get rid of this one because she is here with me through thick and thin, and she could really, really appreciate that. And I'm telling you, oh my goodness, when I saw this about receiving support, don't you know you have people in your life that have been with you through everything that you've ever been through? And they always have a kind word. They always help you see the value of what you've been through. They always can help you to see the insight and the lessons and the blessings that God has brought you through. We need people like that around us. And Ruth was that for Naomi. Boy, I tell you, I get excited when I'm thinking about that. And then, of course, the last one is we have to redeem our God-given identity. We have to redeem our God-given identity. You know what I think about this? I think about when they finally got back to Judah, and Naomi, you know, I think she had lost her identity. So now her and Ruth is on their way back to Judah, and guess what? The scripture says that people saw them and they were excited. So I want you to hear Naomi's spirit and attitude and as to how she has lost her God-given identity. It says, so they went until they came to Bethlehem, and it came to pass when they were come to Bethlehem that all the city was moved about them. All the city was excited to have them back. And they said, this is what people in the city were saying, is this Naomi? Is this the Naomi that we know that she's been gone for 10 years and she's lost her husband, she's lost her two son-in-laws, she lost her two sons? And this is what Naomi said to them. And she said unto them, call me not Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty hath dwelt very bitter with me. I went out full, and the Lord had brought me home again empty. Why then call me Naomi, seeing that the Lord had testified against me, and the Almighty had afflicted me? So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab. And they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. So did you hear Naomi's attitude as to people were excited to have her back? And to know that, you know what, she's still healthy, she's still well, but she's lost her husband, she's lost two sons, and she still is alive, and she's back home. And the first thing that Naomi says, don't call me Naomi. No, call me Mara. She had taken on the identity of what she has been through. And don't you know sometimes we do that? We feel so sorry for ourselves, and somebody asks us, we've been through a storm, and somebody asks, well, how you doing? Oh, man, I'm just trying to stay alive. I'm just trying to make it. Man, you just don't know what I've been through. Well, guess what? Everybody's been through something. Everybody's going through something. And everybody's going to go through something. Somehow we have to figure out how we're going to redeem our God-given identity. Matter of fact, Naomi didn't even recognize that she was back home at the perfect time, at the barley harvest. She was going to be taken care of. God was going to take care of her, but she was still stuck into what she had been through. She told them, she said, I left here full. I left here excited. I had everything. I had my husband. I had my 2 sons and my daughter-in-laws. But now I'm back and I'm empty. I left full, but now I'm back empty. And God has done all these things to me. Can you see that she has lost her God-given identity? Don't you know we lose our God-given identity when we go through things and we're not positive? We don't have a vision. We don't have hope. We're still not inspired to do what God has called us to do. We don't truly believe that things are going to work out. But I'm here to tell you, if we're going to win with what we have left, we have to redeem our God-given identity. And so I just hope that these things that I'm sharing with you today will help you to win with what you have left. You know, I don't know what you've been through. I don't know what you're currently going through. And I don't know what you're going to go through. But I do know this. Naomi is a perfect example for us. Now, I know the story is mainly about Ruth, but right now we're talking about Naomi. Because Naomi is the one who has seemingly lost so much. And I know if I talk to you and you tell me that, Dr. Jones, man, you just have no idea what I've lost and who I've lost. And you would probably tell me what they meant to you and what they taught you and how close they were to you. And you can probably get in the shoes of Naomi. But I'm here to tell you these 4 things that we're talking about today, right? You have to learn how to redefine yourself based on what's happened. And we talked briefly about that. Second thing you have to do is you have to renovate your relationships. You have to evaluate who is in your life right now that is good for you. Now, she freed Orpah, but guess what? Ruth was committed to be with her. You're going to renovate your relationships by focusing on the people who are committed to you, who love you, who's got your back through thick and thin, no matter what you do or what you don't do, what you have, what you don't have. It doesn't really matter. They're going to be with you. You need to find those Ruths in your life and make sure that you cling to them because they're going to cling to you. So number 3, and when they cling to you, receive the support. I mean, just receive it. Humble ourselves. And, you know, I can promise you right now, for me, that's one of the things that I've been working on the last couple of years. There's been so many people who've been wanting to help me. And guess what? I had so much pride that I'll do it on my own. But I have learned, to just learn how to receive support. You know, sometimes I do good deeds for people and they want to pay me. And I'm like, oh, no, you don't have to pay me. And I tell you this, an elderly lady confronted me on that one day. I was mowing their yards and you know, I was doing it out of the goodness of my heart. And they came out to give me some money. And I was like, oh, no, you don't have to do that. And she looked at me and she said, well, I'm doing this because God told me to do it. So now do you want to reject it? See, it forced me to humble myself and receive the support because when people are helping you, you don't know what God is doing through them to help you. So learn how to receive support. So now when people offer me things, guess what I do? I receive it. I receive it openly because I recognize it's not about me. It's not about my pride. It's not about what I think. When people are trying to help you, allow them to help you. And then, of course, last but not least, we have to figure out and reclaim our God-given identity. Sometimes we go through things in life and we take on the identity of the things that we've been through. Or we take on the identity of the things that we are currently going through. Or we take on the identity of the things that we're going to go through. We sit around and we worry and we complain and we feel so bad and we don't focus on what we have and we look at what we don't have and there's this scarcity mindset and we get so worried and concerned. And guess what? It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because that's where we invest our energy. But I've recognized in this story that when we redeem our God-given identity, oh my goodness, we're right where we are at the perfect season because God is setting us up to go to the next place. And so, I just hope that these 4 things in this story that I'm sharing today will help you to win with whatever you have left, right? Just win with what you have left. And more importantly, just keep it going. So as you continue to watch some of these videos, I'm going to be breaking those 4 steps down and elaborating more on those 4 areas, because it's just so important that we learn how to win with what we have left. Don't compare yourself to other people. Focus on what you have. And when you do that, you're going to win with what you have left. So listen, I thank you for spending time with me and watching these videos. I pray that they're helping you, because guess what? They're helping me. And I'm excited about what God is doing. And so, hey, take these strategies and go and win with whatever you have left. Like the video, share the video with someone who may be going through something, who feel like they may be stuck. Maybe this can be a Band-Aid for them, to help them to get to the next place, to get them to where they need to be. So again, thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you on a future episode.